Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everybody. Kia ora, good morning. Coming to you live here from Fielding Library, which is just this beautiful new library. And I'm talking today with somebody I don't know yet very well, Bridget Bell. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe, Harv. Kia ora koutou. Yes, Harv is in our metropolis of Fielding, Pito Te Ao, the centre of the universe, Manawatū. Exciting to have you here, Harv.
Yeah, it's and we've got a new road is open this morning.
We do, Te Ahua Tūranga, which is absolutely, truly exciting to have our Tararoa Manawatū connections there and be able to go through a lot faster than what we have been for the last 8 years.
And safer.
Safer.
People have died on that road since, the last 8 years, and very sad. And so now we've new connections, so celebrating that.
We do. We actually had our opening in the weekend on Saturday, and it was a wonderful opening with NZTA, Minister of Transport, iwi, mana whenua, and it was just a wonderful occasion actually.
Let's just talk about this first before we start the proper podcast, okay? What I've noticed with this is the process of this building this new road has been different.
Yes, very different. So we are the first in the country to have partnership with iwi at all levels. So other roading projects, they had, projects had partnership weaved into it, but it wasn't across from the partnership board governance right down to operations, right down to health and safety, procurement, the aesthetics, everything. So every element had our voice there. And I think that's what made it so unique and actually a model for the rest of the country. And that was touched upon by Kingi Kiriona at our opening, that what a marvellous example and demonstration of NZTA and the Crown working with Māori.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
Yeah. That
we got there and we had a relationship too where it was an honest relationship, but it was a beautiful one. And I'm not posturing that. There was, some wonderful, opportunities to each other that we'd gifted each other and sharing of knowledge.
Yeah. And I think as a result, the project has gone really well.
Yes.
I think in budget, I don't know, but I've heard in budget and on time. And
we're not being told, that paying a price. So thank you to our community.
Yeah.
And Tangi Utukere and the councillors from Palmerston North for working really well with the community and making sure that you didn't have to pay for every time you used it.
Yeah. And there were, through the consultation period, I remember, I think there were 7 different options that could have been or were explored around bridging this divide, and they came down to one, and when they came down to one, everybody was on board with it. Yeah. So it's like, look at us being all grown up. Yeah. It's a nice change, it's a nice change. Anyway, we've put the cart before the horse. Bridget, who are you?
Kia ora Harv. So who am I? Ko Waio. He uri tēnei nō ngā haue whāo te wako o Tainui, nō ngā te haua ki Waikato, nō ngā te Manuapoto, nō ngā te matakore ki te reo, nō ngā te kauwhata, nō ngā te raukua ki te tonga, ki te tautoko Wairoa, ko Taranaki. So I whakapapa to a lot of iwi, 5, within the Tainui waka, so starting from Waikato, Morrinsville, travelling down to Aotearoa, here in the valley in Te Reo by Halcombe, Fielding here, and then Otaki. So those are all my genealogical roots as a wahine Māori, but I grew up also in Taranaki, so I've been extremely lucky to have been nurtured and have that as what we call our ukaipo, so your place, your safe space, your ahuru mowai, your my beautiful childhood was placed there. So I've consider myself lucky to have the Taranaki and Tainui connections that I have. And now I'm here in Manawatū with my Ngāti Kōwhita whānau and my Te Reo whānau, and it's wonderful actually to be such a party mix of genealogy. I'll call it like a favourite. So many different connections. Yeah.
And we're talking this morning because of our mutual friend, colleague,
Yes.
Lara Blackmore,
Yes.
who has instigated this and told me I need to talk to you. We had met once before, you didn't remember it, but I'm getting over that. It's okay. It's all right.
Still brings it up.
Yeah.
I'm over it.
I'm over it.
I'm completely over it.
Yeah, I've moved
But
on.
I do notice.
But I just needed to mention it for the fifth time. And it's a really timely conversation because I want to focus on this very contentious thing of the Māori wards. And you are our only Māori councillor representing our Māori ward for our region.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, for Manawatū District, yes. We've only got one ward, one seat.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm privileged to serve in that space.
So you're just completing your first 3-year tenure on the council.
I know, 3 years. It feels like 30, but yes, it is. It is about to be 3 years, my first training.
Where should we start with this conversation, Bridget?
Oh, wherever you want to start it. If you want to start it from the hīkoi, if you want to start it, my idea is that actually my seat started from Taranaki, to be honest. So maybe we'll start there. I remember a few years ago seeing on the news this very Pākehā mayor front the TV screen, Andrew Judd, and he was the mayor of New Plymouth at the time, and one of the things that stand out to me was his kōrero about what Māori wards would do for New Plymouth, and his council in particular, because they didn't have any at the time. And I remember thinking how brave he was. Because I grew up in Taranaki too, I kind of knew that there was a conservative culture there, and having Māori voices wasn't always, their strong point. But as I was watching their Māori ward conversation and their journey was global. It reached not only like our national news, it reached global, and their hīkoi was stunning. And I remember Andrew talking about his journey of being a reformed racist and not realising that he was one. And I look at him and I know it cost him his mayoralty.
Yep.
It cost him a lot of personal things as well.
Yep. Some health, whānau, relationships, jobs, career, money. He was extremely brave, and he still is. He still is all those things. And I always thought, I remember asking him, why did you do it then when you started losing all these important things? What year was that? Can you remember?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think I was like only 10 then. It was only 2 days ago. I'm kidding. 2000 and... I want to say, is it 18?
Sounds about right.
2018?
I was going to say, I think it's 8 to 10 years, so it's a bit more, but okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I want to say 2018.
Yep. But it came out of nowhere.
It came out of nowhere. It truly came out. And it spiralled. It escalated. And so much community input, not even just in Taranaki itself, but across the country. Because the fear was, if New Plymouth, won, and they did establish a Māori ward, then there would be a ripple effect everywhere. And that's exactly what happened, right? And
Bridget, I'm just going to ask you to just shuffle forward a little bit. I'm just to make sure that we get you. That's cool. That's
sure.
Cool. Yep. Bridget, the other thing I remember from our mutual friend Liana Potu, and Liana said Māori were taken by surprise. Local Māori were taken by surprise with this. And I remember Liana saying at the time, we didn't ask for this because the backlash and the racism was quite profound and intense.
Yeah.
And just like, here we go again, this white boy trying to do the right thing, but,
Yeah.
It's taken us by surprise, and I remember her at the time just going, it was a big deal.
It was a big deal, and it was a huge deal because what it did is it sparked really uncomfortable and confronting conversations, even between colleagues and friends, between non-Māori and Māori alike. And I think, and just big mihi te Liana in her kōrero around, we didn't ask for this. No one asks for abuse, and whether you're Andrew Judd or whether you're Liana or whether you're Dini Moiahu, you don't ask for abuse in your journey. And I think that was probably the bit that was quite confronting for our Taranaki whānui, is recognising that in order to win the ward, you had to go through some really, really horrible conversations, and defensive ones at that, and navigate that and figure out how to do that well. And, kudos to them. I truly don't think there's any other ward or any other council, let alone any other town or region, that went through what they did. And had they not gone through what they did, I would most certainly wouldn't have my ward. The 41 other councils that have established Māori wards would never have received that win had Taranaki and New Plymouth not started that off the way that they did.
Yep.
Yeah, so I've always been truly, deeply grateful to New Plymouth, to Taranaki, Mana Whenua, to Andrew Judd, to all the allies there for allowing us to at least have the conversation in our own districts, which is how Manawatū got theirs.
And then you come forward to the conversations where it seemed every local council could decide whether they were going to embrace having Māori wards or not.
Yes.
And that was a fascinating glimpse into different districts and how they dealt with this.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there was fear, really, particularly for those incumbent mayors and elected members, councillors, because a representation review, which is what Taranaki did, right? They recommended a Māori ward during the representation review. That was their feedback. But a representation review happens to every council. It's, we're legally binded to do that, where we look at what our governance structure and wards are every 6 years. So once Taranaki had gone through their journey, everyone else were about to, go through their representation reviews and have those conversations. And we are legally bound to consult with the community once we have come up with what we think might be appropriate or will work for our council. And so that's exactly what the 41 others did, or everyone else did, including Manawatū. And, our journey is a little bit like Taranaki, where we didn't get it easy. We were declined ours. So I think there's been a little bit of an itch at the start of, not really feeling completely comfortable with the idea of what some people would see as a race-based seat. Yeah.
Race-based, isn't it a great term? And it's such an easy thing to roll out and create the divide.
Yeah.
So, who decided locally that we didn't want the Māori wards?
Oh, is this the bit where I throw people under the bus and I name them? I'm kidding, I won't do that. I think what
was it council?
Council.
It was council.
Council of the day at the time. So it
wasn't the public, it was the people elected onto the council.
Correct.
And they voted amongst themselves.
At the end of the day, regardless of the feedback of community, the council have the mandate.
Yep.
They have the mana to make the decision. And they had made the decision that, well, first of all, there was what we call our own local referendum. So you can cause a referendum during your representation review by making sure that you get at least 2% of signatures, which is not a lot.
I was going to say, I didn't know that was so low.
Yeah. That's how low the bar was or is, and so it triggered it triggered a referendum, a choice for the community to decide or want to have input around a Māori ward. So we had an elected member, more than one on the day at the time that didn't feel that we should have a Māori ward, and sort of orchestrated and collected some signatures. They hit over the 2%, and then there was there were thousands that voted for us not to have a Māori ward. And I believe for us, there was only 500 at the time that voted yes, keeping in mind that, to be honest, when that was happening, it wasn't a balanced presentation. It was literally door knocking and going to rest homes and going to different places that were already, sort of the demographic, and saying, can you sign this? They're trying to have co-governance, or, we're having race-based seats, and boom, hello, we've nearly got 7,000 signatures within a few weeks. So I just want to point out that, it wasn't I don't feel it was a fair, unbiased approach. Even so that our previous mayor, Carol, and I just want to, mihi to her because she's passed, she signed it and then marched down to council when she figured out what she signed and took her signature back. Because what was presented to her wasn't the full facts. And she was so deeply disappointed in herself. And I remember her apology to us. And there were a few pivotal figures in our own local community that did that. So anyway, they got a lot of signatures, and that made our mayor of the day and our councillors feel that the community weren't ready. So they voted no. And then that answer, that no, I remember actually that day because we were at our Massey grad, and you could see all of our kōwhara phones and Mehana's phones going off, and we were just, our phones were just pinging about the decision, and then that resulted in the hīkoi that we had here in Fielding because of that decision, because we were so shocked by it. We truly didn't think that I think we were surprised that there wasn't a better process. There wasn't a full consultation that they did with all of the 12 marae, all of the hapū and iwi. They didn't come and visit us. There wasn't this public awareness and information that was presented to us in the way that would have created really meaningful conversation before they voted. So I think in hindsight, looking back, a lot of the time when they made decisions around whether we should, when they made the decision to not have us, it's also reflective of the relationship we had at the time, which I don't believe was a close relationship. I think we've got better now, but at the time there wasn't a genuine, close, open door relationship. And I know that there's probably some that will disagree in council. They felt that they did their best with iwi, but that was just, our view anyway.
Yep. And as a Pākehā, there are times it's like Māori can seem mystifying to us at times.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's just like, how do we do this? What? We asked them.
Yeah, true.
Just say, what?
Yeah.
So I can understand that thing. Oh, we tried.
Can I just say something? There's something that it's well known to us locally, but what council had done was they asked individuals. So they streamlined a particular leader, or leaders, and they would ask them, but they didn't consult it out. And I think that's part of the danger sometimes with councils across the country is they kind of pick the favourite Māori they want at the time. And so that not only puts council in an unsafe position because then they get a fright when that's not the, general answer or general view of everyone. Iwi also get a fright because it's, you've all of a sudden, without you realising, given consent for them to make a decision that affects so many others.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tell me about this word hīkoi. Because it's a unique thing to New Zealand.
Sure.
It's a form of protest.
I think that's what it is perceived.
Through my Western eyes.
Sure.
So tell me, what is a hīkoi?
Well, I completely agree with that whakaaro, that view that you have, Harbour, and it's seen as a protest because that's how the word hīkoi has been introduced, right? It's been introduced to the motu, the nation, as a protest. But if we look at what the word is, hīkoi meaning to walk, part of walking is a journey. And so for me, I perceive the word hīkoi as a journey. It's not just the physical, tangible moment of the day where you're marching and walking for a kaupapa for a reason. It's the journey throughout the entire time. Like I find my 3 years in council a hīkoi.
Right.
I find your school years a hīkoi because it's a journey, it's a walk, it's a season. So, yeah, just thought I'd share that with you about a different way of looking at it.
That's the reason for the question, because when you mentioned that, the word hīkoi, I wrote it down, I thought, I've got no idea what hīkoi means.
Yeah.
I know it as a protest because that's when it showed up.
Sure.
And so I go back to Dame Whina Cooper.
Yes.
It was the first go, there's this,
Yeah.
And my parents disapproved of Dame Whina. It was just like, these, bloody Maoris, what are they on about now? So that was my introduction to hīkoi.
Right.
And the other reason I ask is because so far I've only partaken in one hīkoi in my life, and it's so peaceful. And yes, there are speeches, but it is so peaceful and relaxing being part of this hīkoi.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a surprise to me. I thought it was going to be lots of gnashing of teeth, and there was that at the appropriate times, but the rest of it was walking and talking.
Yes.
And not just about the what was going on at the time. Yeah. So I found it incredibly relaxing. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's probably another, perception is that hīkois, don't have this high level of intentional protection and safety. And organisers of hīkoi have a huge job for talking about the actual marches for a kaupapa. And, Whai Dame Whina Cooper is just a beautiful example. The seabed mining is another pivotal moment in our history of our country of a hīkoi. Obviously the Toi Tū Te Tiriti movement, here for fielding our local Māori wards. But there are, weaved in, there's so much preparation before a hīkoi. Hīkoi isn't just a responsive move. It's the organisers, the kaimahi, the leaders of that space, they are very much responsible for the tikanga that's set, for the protocol that's set, for the health and safety that's set. I don't think I've ever been to a hīkoi where the organisers haven't gotten up in their mihi, explained what we're here for and who we're here for and the behaviour that's expected of you. And if you're not here for these reasons, and if you can't behave in this certain way, then this hīkoi isn't meant for you. And then it isn't race directed. It's for everyone to know that this is the tikanga for this time, for this march, and it's important that you uphold the mana of that. And so every hīkoi that I've ever been a part of has always been really, really peaceful. Powerful, still have ihi, wehi, haka, but for us, haka isn't a violent space. Haka is an expressive space, so a spiritual space. So I think, the elements of a hīkoi where there is, powerful chanting and powerful haka is a space of solidarity and also a space of gratitude as well. Gratitude for the work that has gone into it for our ancestors that have gone before us, for our mokopuna in the future. So I would look back at my very first hīkoi was actually the Māori Ward referendum here in Whilding. That was my very first. And since that time, I think I've been to several now, but that was my first, and so beautiful that would be my intro to the world, the hīkoitanga, the world of it, that I would start first at home.
We haven't got to the subject yet, but that's okay.
Okay.
You mentioned haka. It's another one of those things that I go, what is it? What is it?
Yeah.
And we see it with sports. It's been, developed by the All Blacks. I had a mate who played, he's 10 years older than me. I see videos of him doing the haka as an All Black in the 1960s, and it's embarrassing, and his sons take the piss out of him and go, oh my God. And I look at how far that's come. But recently we had haka performed in Parliament, which has caused lots of gnashing of teeth.
Sure.
What's your interpretation of that?
Oh, well, I want to separate the Special Privileges Committee and the Parliament experience to haka itself,
100%.
because I think that
100%.
was a political decision around the suspension of the MPs involved. But if I think of haka itself, I have always remembered my very first haka, and it was super emotional. And I think for those that know what haka is because we've done one, it's such a beautiful space to be in. It's truly out of your body experience. And there's so many comments that you see, oh, it's ugly, it's violent, it's all these things. And I think the Parliament has probably made a lot of those people that don't understand what haka is come out of the woodworks still thinking that way.
Yep.
But for us, haka is just, it's a lot of things. It's a space where we get to connect to each other. We get to connect to the kaupapa. Even the words in the haka itself, they're usually old kupu, the old words, some of our haka that, we've been able to inherit from our ancestors or been gifted as a gift. And so for me, haka in itself is such a privileged space for you to give the haka, for you to receive a haka. And the connotations that have now been attached to it, that it's a negative thing, that it's an intimidating space. I mean, I find, the haka that Hannah had started in Parliament, I remember just crying because, my whānau, and I was in that haka too. So seeing them get up, seeing Debbie, Rawiri, Penny, and many of the others too that were in that space stand or haka was just, it was a beautiful reclamation moment.
Spontaneous?
Sure. Whether it was spontaneous or not, I don't know the background details of it. And sometimes haka is, but haka's also wairoa driven, right? You can feel it. And if I look back at the hīkoi and Whilding when they entered the chambers and we saw our rangatahi haka in the chambers, and I know an elected member was deeply affected by that, very similar to the reaction in Parliament, oh, it's intimidating, and he felt that this 11-year-old boy doing haka was just too much for him. Whereas I saw it as a proud moment. I was like, look at our babies understanding how important a Māori ward voice is at the table, and thus saying to the mayor and the elected members of the day, don't take that from us, and nor will you ever. And so I think, there's certain haka that I look in my pivotal moments that are attached to the hīkoi that make me emotional. And even before the chambers, there was an opportunity we had at halfway through the hīkoi where the Whilding clock tower is. And we had at the front, you had Gerald Toomey, Meihana Jury, and you had Manukura, the school, you had Hatapolda College, you had the Kuroa Kōwhara, you had all this iwi, even iwi that came all the way from Ruapehu, that all came from Horowhenua, from Tararua. We had other iwi leaders and their whānau attend, and we were giving a haka.
Andrew Judd came down.
Andrew Judd, all our allies, Pacifica, our churches here in Fielding, businesses. And I think it was so perfect to have done it halfway, because it wasn't performative for the council. It was an honouring of who we were on our own land, on our own sovereign land. And I think it was, for me anyway, like I can still, it's so funny, I can still hear it. I can still hear the individual voices, and I can still hear my cousins, and I can still hear my nephews and nieces, and often it visits me, that memory. Sometimes in chambers it does that, because it was just a pivotal moment for us. So I think haka is in a space where it's, intended to be violent to another individual, and I know that's part of the rhetoric that's now sadly circulating in social media. Haka is the standing in a space, owning the space, being grateful for that space, for those people, for the kaupapa.
Mm. I'm going to mention a woman I worked with, Bettina Anderson, who will be listening to this. And Bettina is Pākehā, but deeply connected to Māori, and is studying at the moment to deepen her knowledge. And she got me out of the office that day, and with that hīkoi, and goes, "Come on, Hub, we're going to hīkoi." Mm-hmm. And awesome. Would have I gone without her? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not. I didn't take a lot of encouragement to go. As Pākehā, we were made to feel welcome. We weren't othered. I did make one mistake. I jumped up on a park table to take a photo, and somebody politely came over and said, "Get down off the table." It was like, oh, okay. And it as Pākehā, it wasn't my fight, but it was my fight.
Yeah.
It's funny, eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm a privileged white male, and for many years have not recognised that privilege.
Right.
Still don't recognise it at times, right? You don't. Privilege is like liken it to an accent. You don't know you've got it. You think everybody else has got an accent, but you don't. But yeah, every now and then my privilege sort of shows up, and I go, oh, yes. But I felt incredibly included that day. And Bettina was very good at keeping me in line, apart from that one moment, as to where I, and how I should be in that moment. But it was deeply respectful, and it was lovely. And so, Councillor, this has been your work for the last 3 years. Why do you think Pākehā is so scared of this concept of the Māori wards?
Oh, it's actually a big part. That's a big question, Harv, and I think there's different layers to the fear around what Māori representation looks like. I think the first, really surface level fear is the idea that it's a special privilege. I know that's a massive trigger for some, that for some reason having your own voice, where you're mandated, is perceived to be a significant stepping stone. And whereas I see that as more like a crumb, But, if you look deeper too, and we look at our own history, you don't have to dig far enough for you to recognise as well that Māori have been, invisible or silent at so many tables, so many decision-making tables beyond local government.
For a long time.
Yep, so many different sectors for a long time. I can totally, although I don't agree with it, I can totally see how the idea for us to finally have that is quite confronting for a lot.
Yep.
And I even think if you look at, when you come from a space of, and I just want to acknowledge I'm Pākehā and Māori, hence the name Bridget Bell, the idea, like if I look at my Pākehā whānau, the idea of sharing governorship and sharing power, for some reason they interpret as they're losing some of their own mana that they've always felt that belonged to them. And it's one of the frustrating things for me is that when Māori wards come to the table, it doesn't mean we're taking something away from you. That's the perception, right? That, if one comes in this 12 group of Pākehā, just this one voice, then all of a sudden there's this imbalance.
They'll be everywhere.
Yeah, oh no, we've got brownies everywhere. Yeah, exactly. And there's just, this allergic reaction and this fear that comes from, in your puku that just comes out. And so I think the sharing of power when you are in a majority demographic, and that's what Pākehā are. And if we're going to, contextualise this to local government, if you look at the legacy of local government, and you can still look at it now, most who are in local government are from the same, pool. You're a lot older, you're Pākehā, and you're a male.
That's us.
And that's a fact, right? If you look at how many
Yep.
Māori, we only have, 5% of representation, less than that across the country. We grew from 2 to 20, but if you look at the overall representation, we've only got about over 100 of us. We still don't exceed anywhere near the 25%. You look at YEMs, young elected members, we're only 14% of the country. So again, age, cultural background and gender is usually Pākehā, male, and you're old. You're older. You're in the older demographic, so you're a gem, adjacent to a YEM.
Okay.
Young elected member, and then you've got the gem who's some people said, I hope that's not geriatric, but no, it's
Be nice.
I say genius elected member. Genius elected member, yeah. The incumbent, yeah, with tenure and experience. But I think that's, again, when I look at people that get upset with Māori wards, well, it seems to be from that demographic because the sharing of power.
There's another group there as well. If you look back historically, you go to just about any chambers in the country and provincial, and you look at the people there, 70%, 80% will be farmers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I have been part of that demographic for, first 40 years of my life, 50 years of my life.
Yeah.
And, if you want to talk about privilege, we just, it is the most amazing, in this country, the most incredibly privileged place to be. And that's a whole different story, but I often say to people, now I'm out of farming, the people that drive up your driveway are trying to sell you something. So they're being very, very nice to you, sometimes more nice than you deserve. But you can get a very skewed view of where you sit in the world.
Sure.
Yeah. That's another subject. What's been the biggest surprise? So you're coming up the end of your 3 years. Now let's go back. When did you put your name in the ring, or did somebody else put your name in the ring?
Oh, yeah, I definitely didn't put my name in the ring.
Why?
First I want to acknowledge, I come from an iwi landscape here in Manawatū where you have so many deserving and so many capable people. I've got so many capable whānau, and I was also mindful, and this is a personal thing for me, I was also mindful I wasn't raised here amongst my own. Although I whakapapa here, I was raised in Taranaki. And there's an element of what we call ahika. Ahika means to keep the fires burning, and I acknowledge I wasn't one of them. I wasn't an ahika. You know, I came back to Manawatū after I finished university to, you know, around the claims time to give back, but I definitely didn't feel like I'd earned, before I became a Māori ward, I didn't have any leadership roles. So I wasn't a trustee on any marae, on any entity. I'd always declined those roles because I just didn't feel like I earned my space. I need to pick up a tea towel. So that was the first insecurity and fear I had, was there were so many ahika that deserved it. I don't feel I was a pivotal player in the hīkoi itself. And there were many people there that to me just stood out. And I felt like, oh, yeah, absolutely. They took the mic and I said, you are designed for this.
Yep.
That just had that political nuance about them. So there was times of reflection where I didn't think that I had the political stamina or strategic experience to be able to sit there. So instead I was nominated, I was nominated at a marae level. So at Aorangi Marae we had a trustee there, and I'm just going to call her out, Hene Moana Jury Shedlock. She had actually texted me and early on, and she said, would you ever consider it? And I ignored her. I think I sent back lol or a laugh face. And then I purposely ignored her for 2 weeks because I was like, absolutely not. And then they had a hui. They had a hui, obviously, without me. And they had so the idea was, Meihan had given the idea that each marae in our district would nominate one person. Because there was only one ward, and we would decide amongst ourselves who would be the one. And so Aorangi Marae had a hui. Hene Moana had obviously bent some arms there. Maybe she wrestled a few people, intimidated them, I don't know, just to get them to agree that I should be considered for Aorangi Marae to be put forward into the next process. And then I remember the first workshop we had, and it was my beautiful whanaunga Amber from Taumata, Nods from Tahiti, Anaru, and we just had some awesome people there. And we had Councillor Alison Shaw, Councillor Pāwaramod Te Awewa from Horizons, Councillor Piri from Horowhenua, who'd come in to give the real talk of what it means to be a councillor. And I think at that hui I realised, like, at an academic level, at a practical level, I could do it. Like, I could do it. I can read all of this. You know, I can articulate. You know, I can manage my time well. You know, one of the other requirements or advice was, you know, make sure you have a supplementary income, because when you're an elected member, it doesn't give you money, really. I think that's another misconception, that you're loaded once you become a councillor, and that's so not it. So all those things, I thought, oh, I can do that. Yep, I can work and be a councillor, you know. So on a practical level, that was presented to me. I thought, yes, but I wanted to make sure that no one, you know, I didn't step on any toes. And I'm not going to sit here and say that everyone loved me. I'm sure that everyone felt that there was a lot of people that felt other people should have it. And what happened was, you know, I got down to, I think, the last couple of hours before the nominations closed off, I waited to make sure if any other leader or, you know, any iwi leader was going to come through before I put my name forward, before I accepted the nomination, because I was so hesitant to not whakaiti anyone. But luckily too, you know, even just recently, Te Kōtuiri Reo have unanimously, you know, made that decision again. But I think it's really important, Te Kōtuiri Reo, the Marae Collective here in Manawatū, it's really important for us as Māori to not allow a system, let alone a voting system or local government system, to make us divisive, make us turn on each other. I think that was so wise and clever of Meihana to suggest that each marae in their own tino rangatiratanga, and that's exercising tino rangatiratanga, right?
I was going to say, it's using your methodology.
Yeah, we had our own election, we had our own process beforehand, or we attempted to at least, and I think that saved our relationships with each other, because our relationships are far more important than any ward. We have lived together for centuries. Why would we allow one ward seat and a local government process to, divide us now. Never.
Has that happened anywhere else in the country where it's been divisive?
I mean, I think, well, first of all, one example I want to mihi to before I answer that is Palmerston North City Council. Rangitane had also met up. They've only got, it's a city, so they have one iwi there. They met and they decided on their two people, which was Debbie Marshall-Lobb and Rolly Fitzgerald. And they had strategically put out Te Karere who they had picked and why they had picked. And it meant that out of the thousands of Māori that lived there, no one put their name forward because that's who mana whenua picked. So I just want to acknowledge it before I answer your question around has local government made, iwi have uncomfortable moments? I would say to that question, the ward hasn't done that. But the behaviour of some councils around how they pick and choose which iwi they want to liaise with, particularly under the RMA. Right. They purposely will, look at the list of statutory settled iwi and they will ignore those that have yet to settle, which is no fault to theirs, no fault to the iwi itself, and engage. And then all of a sudden you've picked, it's kind of like, I explain it to my own council, picking the iwi that you want when you liaise and consult with them is trying to pick which child is your favourite, and then leaving some out of the will. I know Councillor Alison Schultz described it as that too. So I would say council are great at that. But the thing is, we knew that. We knew council were really good at, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, making decisions that would make us fight amongst each other. So we decided that we weren't going to do that, and we didn't do that. There was no whawhai, there was no fight over the process or the decision. And then once my name was in, I believe I was the last candidate, it was peaceful. It wasn't there was no ill behaviour from anyone. It was
So Bridget, we've got the election coming up. I think it's in September, October. You're going to put your name forward again? Am I allowed to ask that?
Yeah,
now?
Absolutely. It's funny that you asked that. Te Kotuiria, the Marae Collective, they had voted on the first week of May. They had voted unanimously for me to restand. So, in our culture, we more get voluntold than volunteer. And maybe in the first term at the start, I felt that was my story, being voluntold. I don't feel like that's my story anymore, because with the support of Te Kotuiria, I feel absolutely ready to go into my second term. I don't feel like I'm not prepared or I can't contribute to the space. So I'm walking in both. I'm walking in endorsed by the Manawatū Marae Collective, but equally I'm actually walking in on my own confidence that I can restand. And hopefully by the time someone hears this, the media release has already been out. Te Kotuiria sent out their media release last night.
Okay.
So I can say it now, but yeah, by the time anyone hears this, it's already news. It's already launched.
Can I say congratulations? Is that a...
Oh, thank you.
Is that a... Because what I was going to say is Māori are very vocal when they're not happy amongst themselves.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Vocals. That's a kind.
That's very.
We
kind.
can be fatalistic.
Yeah.
We can be fatalistic. We are ruthless.
I have heard some accounts by some friends at Waitangi and telling people just to sit down and shut up and.
And here's the thing. I'm not going to sugarcoat my experience.
We'll get to that soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
So if the different marae were not happy with Councillor Bridget Bell,
correct,
you would know.
Oh yeah.
And it would be a different process.
It would be, and can I just say, I knew coming into this role I'd make mistakes, and I've made some, And I have in amongst the marae protectors, but I also have correctors, those that chin check me. And that's healthy. I don't see that as a bad thing. So their endorsement doesn't mean they haven't told me off as traineum or haven't reminded me of the expectations they have upon me. There are some that most certainly do. From the moment I was sworn in, what they expect of me in terms of how I conduct myself, in terms of what how I pivot at the table. And I find that actually a comfort for me. I never have to look far to ask for feedback of. The beautiful thing about our hapū and iwi and Manawatū is they're more than willing to give feedback. And I've been given feedback for the last nearly 3 years. So, and it's a monthly thing, so I'm very lucky that Te Kōtuireo have invited me into their space as a collective. And I'm also very grateful that I have my own independent relationships with each of the marae. That, there's the collective, but it's also important for you to maintain your own relational space, your own modi with each of them, because they're all different. This is the misconception people have when you see a collective, that they're all the same. All of the marae have different tikanga, or they have different priorities. Our marae in the valley in Te Reo and Haukim struggle with water. We've got marae that struggle with flooding mitigation. You've got marae that struggle around redevelopment and papakainga. And so there are different challenges that each of the marae have, and it's important that, the expectation was that I was aware of them all, and I did my best to manage advocating for them all. Yeah.
You used the term before, chin check?
Chin check, yeah.
What's
little
that?
Chin check. A chin check, it's an expression when, it's a boxing expression, so excuse my language here, but it's when chin check, you get an uppercut. You get someone who gives you a little jab right in the chin, and, as a boxer, when you get jabbed in the chin, it's quite a sensitive space. You kind of think it's the mouth or the cheek. No, it's the chin. That's why they call it the glass chin. So, in my space in particular, there have been times where, and I've deservingly so, been chin checked, been reminded of where I need to be and how I need to be, more importantly. It's not all endorsement and roses and support. There's a balance, and I think that's really important. And I'm actually really grateful for those chin check moments, because afterwards I've been like, yeah, I deserved that. I so deserved that.
Never heard the term before, and as soon as I'm dying to know what that is.
Yeah,
I thought it might be because you talked too much, or you said something that, yeah. No,
it's more of like we needed you to do this, or we needed you to fight for this, or those are the, whatever it may be. There's different reasons why you get chin checked. It might be small things like a tikanga that I broke, or an event that they didn't see me visible in, and that was part of the, I guess, things that you accept when you get nominated for any Māori role. And
Yep.
Māori Awards, it's not exclusive to that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I think you are the youngest councillor we have in the region.
Very, very,
Very, very youngest.
very, yeah. I would say there's no competition there on my council. Absolutely, we have a lot more gems than yems. I'm the only yem.
And it's interesting because I heard a view from a mate, happens to be Māori, and he said, look, I don't think anybody over 65 should be allowed to vote. And I went, what? And he said, yeah. He said, look, when, and he was over 65, and he goes, we've had our time.
Yeah.
We have our time, and we vote. It's not our future that we're voting for. It's and for a, and he said, I don't think we should be allowed to vote. I think we should give the vote and stay out of it. And I thought it was a really interesting view, right? He pushes the boundaries, and I went, okay, I can get that. I've talked to a few people about that, and I get shouted down. Don't be silly, we've got all the wisdom, and so I go, well, sometimes, not always. So, the very, very much youngest councillor, 3 years on.
For this term, yeah.
3 years on. What's been the biggest surprise for you?
Probably the biggest surprise for me in terms of my age was just how, you can say the word's traditional, but how draconian some of the, systems are within local government, and how slow. Like, I truly believe how we move, like our referendums aren't slow, like any reform isn't slow. They happen because of central government directing local government. But in terms of our own authority, we move so slowly. And it's reflective, I think, to be honest, of not having enough yams at the table, because it takes, so much deliberation for us to, think of how we're going to do the bird aviaries at Kōwhai Park and Fielding, or, really simple things. We've got a draft plan that's taken over a decade at our council. And so I think there's the bit that I was surprised about in coming to councils. I thought I could achieve all these things. Like, I came in, I know this sounds very ambitious, but I came in with a list of 100 things that I wanted to achieve. And now that the first few months I sat there and I thought, man, I really need to cut 90 of it out. Even 10's ambitious, because, I assumed that council was a space you could do a lot of notice of motions, recommendations, get things through fast. And it's just not built. The system isn't built for things to happen on time, or for things to happen at any sort of reasonable time. It takes a lot of time for the basics of things to come through.
And I have heard that from many, many politicians over the years, just going, in both central and regional. And it's interesting because some years ago somebody said, have you thought about running, putting your name forward for politics? And I said I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I don't have the patience for it. I'm not sure I'd get elected anyway, but I don't think I've got the patience for it. And one of the things I love with what we are developing with collective intelligence is that conversations on complex issues can be pretty dynamic when it's done well, and you can roll. So when I've popped into the council to listen from time to time, I'm going, this is a really flawed way of communicating to each other. It's stilted. And I didn't see any building on somebody else's idea or pushback, or it was not dynamic. And I just don't know how you do it, Bridget. I really don't.
Oh, yeah. I mean, politics is a beast. Even at local government, it really is. And I think there is, a kind of, you have to have a vision, a very clear vision in your own personal mind of what it is that you want to see in your own community, especially if you're getting to local politics, so that you always remember, I can't believe I'm quoting this, but actually Pa Mason Jury talks about, it's okay if we have differences, but as long as you see the horizon. If you can see the horizon, and that's what we focus on, then we'll get there. Sorry, Pa, I don't mean to be stealing your quote, but I that's exactly how I feel like I've survived my first experience in local government, because it can be a cesspit. It truly can be, and there's a lot of things that people don't get to see, especially for me, because I'm so alone in my own council. Yeah. I'm alone in a YEM level, at a generational level. I'm alone in the sense that there's no other Māori that sits there, let alone mana whenua. And so it's, I've had to constantly remind myself about what is the vision? What's the horizon? What I want to see in the community for Manawatū, for Fielding, for our 17 rural villages.
Bridget, if you hadn't come through the Māori ward system, would you be in council?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, even now, if I was, let's just say, if I was to move aside and go into the urban ward, the Fielding ward, there is no way that I would get picked. It's you know, I look at Taupo District Council, and you've got a very well-known Māori accountant who tried at least 3 times, and it wasn't until they established Māori wards that he got in. He is so incredibly smart. He has given so much to his community in Taupo. How did he not get through? Well, it's obvious why he didn't, right? Because he doesn't fit the demographic of local government. You know, he's not Pākehā, he's not, you know, he doesn't sit in that sort of powerful majority space. And I think, you know, we're delusional to think that it's easy. I'm not saying it can't be done. Like, you look, there are Māori that sit in general seats. But they've had to work extremely hard.
And they're the exception.
They are the exception. And this is a thing that frustrates me, and maybe I'm going to touch on something that's going to trigger some hearers, you know, some listeners, sorry, is, you know, when you are Pākehā, and particularly if you're a Pākehā older male, you can become an elected member if you're ordinary. For me, I had to, or my iwi had to demonstrate that I was extraordinary. You know, when you're Māori, you have to be extraordinary to aim for the same spot. You have to have a doctorate, you know, you have to have all these business acumen, you have to be a high achiever, you have to be worldly, you have to be very well spoken, you have to be palatable in both worlds for you to hit that general seat. And I think that's what's so frustrating. There has to be an element of you that demonstrates that you're extraordinary. And I'm going to be really honest, and again, this is going to be a triggering point, and I don't mean to whakaiti my own colleagues, but we've got some pretty ordinary councillors that sit in Manawatū District Council that have a very, you know, underwhelming background and, you know, got in so easy. I mean, you had 6 people going for 5 seats in the urban and rural, and I'm kind of like sitting there, I'm like, because when I first went into council, truly hard, this is I actually walked in thinking I would be sitting amongst people with at least masters, with high levels of academia, with massive professional experience that I could never match. And I sat there, and it didn't take me long. It took me the first day, and I thought, oh my goodness, I have worked so hard, and so many other areas too, by the way, to get to the spaces I have, and you just got in. Like, you just got in. And so, yeah, I mean,
I'll give you an example where I saw that. We had to put a new advisory board together for collective intelligence. I'm going back maybe 5 years ago. Mm. Now, we had somebody on the board, and he was a white male, right? And then we had a woman from Melbourne who is from Indian descent via, I can't remember where, Uganda and maybe Portugal, right? She was the first female in 4 generations that was not a refugee, right? From Melbourne, super smart. Yeah. Very lucky to have her on our advisory board, right?
Right.
So I asked them to send through a blurb that we could put on our website, right? So hers came through, and it was just fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Right?
I bet.
All the stuff that she's done.
Wow.
Right? The other guy, right, he didn't even have one. Mm-hmm. He didn't have anything because he'd never fucking needed one.
That's right.
Because he just got invited onto stuff, right?
Correct.
And then I said, well, could you send through a photo? So he sent a sort of a selfie photo. And I went, no, I can't use that for the website, you know. Meanwhile, this other woman had a professional photo done, right? And then we had to get his wife to take a sort of a photo. But it was glaringly obvious to end up on the same advisory board. His journey was just vastly different. Now, they were both smart, but she'd operated on the world stage.
Right.
And she had had this and this and this and this and this and this, and been knocked back and back and back and back, because most of the time she wasn't welcome where she was.
That's right.
You know?
And that's the other frustrating thing, is that you're not welcome at the table, not because of your credentials, but because you don't fit, you know?
We don't like being made to feel uncomfortable.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And you might say something that makes me uncomfortable.
And I even think, like, if I'm, I'm unpacking something here that's personal in my training, but if I reflect back to this training, I've noticed that I've intentionally worked harder at working hard, just so that at no point could any of my colleagues say she doesn't work hard. She's not one of the top contributors. Like, I will make sure if I have a consultation night, I will have more numbers than any of them. Or if I, at LTP, they were just going along, making sure that they turned up to the events that council did for them. I put on my own events. Like, I went out of my way to double the amount of events that was in our calendar, because there was no way I was going to end my training. And it's like embedded in me. It's like, and I know that's for so many Māori wards, we try and go above and beyond, like above and beyond.
Yeah.
Not only for our people, but just to make sure that there's no way you could ever say that we didn't match this table, if not exceed it.
And we will notice, I'm saying we, Pākehā, will notice when you don't turn up.
Oh, yeah.
Or you look lazy, or any of that stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's really interesting. And again, I'm going to be careful how I say this. So I won't contextualise this for my own council. But we do have councils where the personal behaviour is questionable. We've had moments at events where you might have had a bit too much of a liquid, or you've had behaviour that has been perhaps unprofessional, and then that doesn't get noticed. You put a foot wrong when you're Māori in these roles, the whole world knows about it.
Yep.
You've got to be super, super vigilant. You've got to be incredibly clean. There's no off time. You don't get to perform in council and chambers and you're not a councillor. There is no off time. You are on 24/7, and that includes your personal life. And so I think there's a sacrifice there that doesn't necessarily get understood by those who, have the luxury of sitting there training him after training him. And, yeah.
I'm one of those, right? I can get away with all sorts of stuff.
Thank you, Hal, for admitting that. I was waiting for that.
I'm more aware now of getting away with stuff. I wasn't for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had a few chin checks.
Yeah.
And I've created a world where chin check seems to come more fucking regularly than they used to. And
Playing
that's
up.
my new. That's my new. No, it's just, I think, just being privileged, not recognising, and it's a whole other subject. Privilege is a funny thing in that we want our children to have a better life and so forth, and how do we create that without producing some whole lot of privileged kids that don't recognise that, getting that balance. We want our children to have good health, we want them to have a good education and so forth, but also we don't want them to be not recognise that privilege. There's a balancing act between the two.
Yeah.
And I've written about this, about the private schools and so forth. I don't think private schools are a good thing for our civilization, because it is another form of white flight. And
so true.
And just going, I'd much prefer if we had decile 5 schools rather than this. Anyway, that's another subject. But I think the world that I've created for myself is that the privilege that went unnoticed for a long time is really uncomfortable for me. It's just like, oh yeah. And I'm a lot better now than I used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, actually, because I noticed the P word, privilege, seems to be, an eye twitch for Pākehā men of your age. It is a massive... when I've brought it up in council, the only ones that got upset were your cousins. But I think, part of how I sometimes respond to your reaction is I talk about my own privileges. Because I have privileges too, you know, there's this misconception that Māori don't have a privilege.
Yep.
My privilege is the fact that I never ever had to worry about food at the table. I grew up in a whānau where I had 2 working parents who worked really hard to make sure that we were well fed, always had a roof over our head, came from a whānau that had home ownership, which I know is a massive privilege in today's date.
Yep.
So we were never in a rental. Both my parents still own their own homes, and I went to really good schools. You know, they made sure that in Taranaki I went to schools that gave me opportunities, and then because of my upbringing got to go to university and supported to do that. So I look at that as a privilege. And so sometimes, you know, when you see someone super uncomfortable with their own privilege, the best thing to do is to connect about your own. And it can be as practical as that. I don't talk about race privilege on my end because I'm Māori, and that's a very sensitive subject. And there's so many disadvantages of being wahine Māori, in particular around leadership, corporate, local government, that I find. So I try and steer away from that space, but I do feel that sometimes connecting around what's our joint privileges, and that most certainly has always been mine.
So here's a privilege that I have that I'm aware of and very appreciative of, and that is my relationship with Māori. And that has happened from over the last 15 years, from meeting Ruri Te Kanawa, to Liana, to Che, to Nick Coop, to a whole raft of Māori who have embraced me and have helped me along my journey of development and understanding. And I love that privilege that I've had. I really do. And it has been a privilege ongoing. And it has allowed me the freedom to have conversations that I wouldn't otherwise do. And so you know, I feel a huge amount of privilege being able to sit down with you, not feeling scared of you, not feeling scared of anything that came up in the conversation, not knowing what's coming up in conversation, but going, I'll be cool with it, right? I can take the odd chin, you know, check, right? And yeah, and that's a privilege that's come in my later life that I've always had to an extent, but I haven't had the learning that's come with it. Yeah, and I don't take that lightly. Yeah. I do cock it up still though, from time to time.
Well, those names you just listed, I feel privileged to be with you, Hart.
Well, no, it's just...
Shane and Leanne have given a lot to our Māori communities.
Oh, huge. And, you know, I saw Che in the news this morning with, we've got Matariki coming up soon, you know, and I'm going to try and muscle in on their ceremony at Ngātarangi if I'm allowed.
Nice.
He's also very good at saying no.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't always say yes. Yeah. Bridget, what? Good luck with the next 3 years.
Thank you.
And thank you for putting your name into the hat. What have we missed in the conversation?
I think, you know, now that the referendums, you know, are upon us, we've got 42 referendums across the country that our government have forced us to do around Māori wards. No other ward, just Māori wards. I think what's topical at the moment is for all of our communities, and most certainly here in Manawatū, our rural villages of our district and fielding, to have conversations around what it means to have a healthy democracy. You know, and healthy democracy looks like that you can see yourself at the table and it's reflective of the community. And so my hope is that our community here in Manawatū will think really deeply and have conversations, have conversations with your neighbours, with your business colleagues, with the teachers that with your parents that you're meeting at the corner when you're walking your children together about, our local leaders and our local servants here in our council and who you want to see there, and making sure that we don't go backwards. Okay, that's the biggest thing that I don't want. I don't want that for anyone, but I most certainly am very committed to not having that in Manawatū. We don't go backwards. Keeping the Māori ward is really pertinent. It's critical, to be honest. It really is. We will need to have Māori voices at the table.
Why is it critical for Pākehā?
Oh, look, I think there's so many times where I feel that having Māori input really helps in so many areas, health and well-being, around even economic opportunities. Like, I feel like, that's something that Pākehā can relate to and value upon. And I think when I look at good partnership, I think of Taupo, their council. They've had some wonderful economic opportunities that have been shared with the community, with Pākehā. And their He Hono building is a great example of local iwi and council working together. So there is definitely a space where there's benefits to both sides. But, beyond money, it's just, I don't want to say it's the right thing to do, but it's time now. Like, the conversation we're having now, I truly don't think we should have been having in a year of 2025, but alas, we are. It's kind of like women's suffrage season, right? Should women get the right to vote? Should Indigenous Māori tangata whenua get the right to be amongst governorship? I mean, that's the same thing, right? It's crazy that we're asking those questions.
Yep.
It's crazy to me.
When you ask it like that, I go, it's a bit embarrassing, really, isn't it?
It is. See, it's funny. In a few years' time, this time right now is going to be used for content and assessments in high school and university, because all those students are going to be thinking, how crazy were we to not recognise that it's a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer that women should get the right to vote. It's a no-brainer that Indigenous Māori who are from here get the right to be part of decision-making processes.
I think we end on that note.
Yeah.
Bridget.
I think so too.
I think that is a beautiful conclusion to the conversation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Tēnā koe have.
I've been looking forward to this, and good luck for the next 3 years. And thank you for doing your work. Popping in and listening to you. You are incredibly eloquent and add so much. Yeah.
Tēnā koe. And thank you to you and Collective Intelligence and all the many wonderful friends you have. I'm extremely grateful to even have this space where we can have just a beautiful, fluid conversation, a safe conversation. It's been my pleasure today, Harv. Thank you.